Welcome back to Indiana Sports Speed Radio on this Monday. After a great weekend, heading into a wonderful week. This segment brought to you by Remax Realty. Cheryl Sizemore. For those in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore. Her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl, at IndyHomePros.com. Joined now by the voice of the Hoosiers, Don Fischer. And Don, what a great week this is probably going to be for you, but an even better weekend that we just had because you did not have to work. And I know what that's like because I was in that boat, and all day Saturday, all I could think was how happy I was for this 2-bye system they have implemented. I'm like, I love this. It was glorious.
Well, I enjoyed the week as well. It was a good week to have a bye week. Obviously, you're 6 games in, and for the football team, you got to give kudos to whoever set up the Big Ten schedule this year for Indiana, because halfway through the season, you get your first bye week, and then, of course, you get one late in the season as well between Michigan and Ohio State. So the byes come pretty good opportunities for this Indiana football team.
Yeah, absolutely. They could not have been placed in any more of a perfect place. And they are coming off of a bye week. I'm sure they had some days off to rest, to heal up, to any of the nicks and bruises, which they've been very fortunate, Don, as far as staying healthy. And that's something that we know this Indiana team has to maintain, because they don't have the depth that Penn State or Ohio State has, most likely. And so staying healthy is project number 1, which they have done. Now you've had the 2 weeks off, but so did Nebraska, which is a little ironic. Usually you don't have both teams coming off of bye weeks. So that should make this game all the more intensive, because in watching some of the other games this weekend, specifically Northwestern getting another good performance from Jack Lausch. But if you take the game he had prior to Indiana, he was like 8 of 27, 58 yards. He was horrible. But then 2 weeks, they had a bye. He looked good against Indiana.
Right.
And then he looked even better the next game out. So if you don't think teams improve each week, you're wrong. And so that should make for a very, very intense game this Friday.
Well, I don't think there's any question it's going to be intense. I do think the strength of Nebraska is their defensive side of the football. I know they're talented on the offensive side as well, but they haven't put the numbers up like Indiana has from an offensive standpoint. And I do think that Nebraska's defense, Kurt Cignetti said Northwestern's defense was the best it had faced up to that point. I think you'll say the same thing about Nebraska, that they'll be the best defense that they have faced up to this juncture of the season, because they're only giving up 272 yards a game of offense. So that's very impressive in itself. I think their lone loss was an overtime loss to Illinois. But they've only played one road game this year, and that was against Purdue. And now they've got Indiana coming up on the road this week. So I think that's an advantage for the Hoosiers too. Although I think Matt Rule is the kind of coach, just like Cignetti, that he gets his team to play wherever they're going to play up for the next ball game. So with 2 weeks to prepare for both teams, it'll be interesting to see if we see something new, especially from Indiana's perspective, because we've seen them do just about everything you would expect an offense can do up to this point. And I thought Zach Osterman, I'll give him a little shout out here, had a really good article about Indiana and how they were able to have dominated so many games this year because of that offense and the red zone stuff that they've been able to accomplish. Going into the weekend, they were the most Indiana had gotten to the red zone and done more things in the red zone than any other team in the country at this point. So I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup with Nebraska on Saturday. The Nebraska fans are going to try and scalp Indiana tickets as much as they can to get a big crowd in here from Nebraska. I hope Indiana fans will refute that and not sell their tickets to Nebraska fans.
Well, first of all, how about having a sellout a week and a half before the game? First of all, that does not happen at Indiana, and I don't remember it happening in any recent memory, even against the Michigans or whomever. It doesn't matter. It does not happen that far out.
And here's the other question. This is I think it's fall break at Indiana. Don't they have the week off this week, the student body?
I didn't get that when I was in college, Don. So
I know I didn't. I never went to college, so I know what you speak. But my point is, I think the student body it'll be interesting to see how many students do show up for Saturday's ball game, because I do think they're on spring or on fall break, which I never heard about that either until here recent years. We didn't have spring break when I was a kid, so that tells you how old I am.
Because I'm like, fall break, what the hell? That's Thanksgiving, man. That was
Right.
the only fall break I had, and Thanksgiving is what, just 5 weeks, whatever date, like 5-6 weeks away. How many breaks you need? But yeah, I think that's not going to be a problem, because the fans are also jumping on this bandwagon now.
Right.
Even the ones that are still holding off or waiting for the other shoe to fall, so to speak. But no, this Indiana team has shown, and you just talked about the numbers that Zach probably had in his article. That's the thing about this team. Their numbers have backed up what they've done this year. They're not winning by lucky. They're not winning on a fumble recovery here and this, and they are dominating everyone. And the thing that I've said about this offense is, I look at a game and I'm like, nope, I don't think that team can outscore Indiana. Indiana's just going to outscore you. And it's not that they're allowing all these points. It's like having Kevin Wilson and a great defense back in the old days when they were scoring 48 points a game, but they were also giving up 50 points. And that's not the case now. And you always wonder, why can't they get an offense that'll score and a defense that'll stop? Now they have that, and boy, has it become fun to watch. They move up 2 spots in the AP poll this week, Don, to number 16 without playing a game.
And they move up in the coaches poll as well. So they're 16 and 18 this week. There's no doubt that, there's a lot of excitement about this Indiana football team, as there should be. This is a ball club that has kind of re-energized an entire Hoosier Nation, so to speak. There's no question what they've been able to accomplish up to this point has been special. But again, I think their toughest part of the schedule is right in front of them right now, starting with Nebraska this weekend. And with a packed house, I think this team will be jazzed. I think they'll be energized. But I think they're that way going into every ball game because of the coaching staff and this head coach. I think Curt Cignetti is one of the best in the country at keeping his kids grounded, understanding what's ahead of them. And this will be an interesting matchup with Nebraska this week because of the bye week, and both teams having an opportunity to maybe plan out something a little bit different than what they've already showed on the football field.
The voice of the Hoosiers with us, Don Fischer. And yeah, there's no reason to think that anything is going to be needed to get this team up. They're playing a Nebraska team that has lost 1 game against a very good Illinois team, although that was a shocker this weekend. But Illinois is a very, very good team. They beat Nebraska at home when they were celebrating their 400th sellout. But this is a team that has a very good quarterback, albeit a true freshman. He has not played like a true freshman and will just continue to get better. Indiana is going to face probably he might be the best quarterback that they faced at this time when they're playing him, as well as this is probably going to be the most dangerous front line that they played.
Yeah, I like I said, I think this matchup on Saturday is going to be the biggest test that Indiana's faced up to this point. At least from my perspective, I think Nebraska is the best team that Indiana's played up to this point. I'm talking about totally. The Raiola kid is definitely a talent. There's no question about that. And I don't know if they've kept it kind of vanilla with him at this point, as far as Nebraska is concerned, because they haven't blown any. I mean, they blew out UTEP in the first game of the season, but that's really the only blowout game that they've had, I think, up to this point. I think they are allowing him to kind of shift into the starting role and give him opportunities, but not taking too much advantage of his youth and inexperience. And I think that'll be something that Indiana tries to do, is put a lot of pressure on this kid with the aggressive defense that Indiana can put out there and go after him a little bit. So like I said, I think this is going to be a terrific matchup. I'm looking forward to it. I think these two teams will go at it tooth and nail on Saturday, and I think Indiana will come out the winner, but we'll have to wait and see on the field. That's where it all takes place.
And Don, you have a set of games coming up, probably like none other you have had in your long and illustrious career for Indiana, Nebraska, followed by Washington, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and every one of these games will have tremendous implications and impact on Indiana's season.
Oh, there's no question. And each one gets tougher as you go through, at least it feels that way up to this point. Michigan State might be the exception, but by that time, maybe their new coach has got things turned around. So just look at this past weekend. Look at the scores that went out there, some of the stunning scores that took place in the Big Ten. So it's going to be fun. There's just no question about that. I think that's the most important factor right now for Hoosier fans, that they finally can have something to cheer about and do so on a consistent basis.
And now you've got to go, but also Friday night before a huge homecoming weekend, but Hoosier hysteria tipped off for the men's and women's basketball programs. A lot of excitement there as well.
Was fall break last week? I don't know. I saw one of the things that scrolled through here that somebody said that the fall break ended this past weekend. So I don't know. I just know one of the people that I know at Indiana University is going on his fall break this week. So I don't know what fall break is. Anyway, long story short, we're going to have fun. Hoosier hysteria coming up on Friday night obviously is a huge deal as well. And so there's a lot of excitement about Indiana basketball too. I went to practice on Thursday. They have really upgraded the guard play, I think, in this Indiana basketball team that we're about to see. And I think they're going to play differently as well. I think it should be a lot of fun this winter as well.
Don Fischer, the voice of the Hoosiers, joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Thank you, Don. We appreciate you, sir.
Thanks for having me, guys. See ya.